I am Layla Monroe, 23 years old today. What should have been a celebration turned into a nightmare when my phone buzzed. The text from Dad read, "Sold your laptop? Your sister needs a new phone. Be grateful. We feed you." I stared in disbelief as another message appeared. Also, you will pay her tuition $5,800 by Friday. When I replied, "No chance," his response was immediate. "Then get out. You are cut off." So I left quietly the next morning. Now, my dad is calling every number he knows, trying to find me. If you are watching this, drop a comment letting me know where you are from. Hit that like and subscribe button if you have ever had to stand up for yourself against family. Trust me, what happens next will show you exactly why boundaries matter. My story really begins long before that text message. I grew up in a middle-class home in suburban Minneapolis with what looked like a perfectly normal family from the outside. My father, Franklin Webb, built his real estate agency from the ground up and never let anyone forget it. He ran our family like he ran his business with strict control over every decision and dollar spent. My mother, Denise Harper, learned early in their marriage that keeping peace meant never challenging him. She became the ultimate peacekeeper, smoothing ruffled feathers but never actually solving the underlying problems. Then there was my sister, Morgan Tate, 3 years younger than me. From the moment she was born, the family dynamic shifted. She was the baby, the princess, the one whose tears could instantly mobilize everyone. I do not resent her for being loved, but the stark difference in how we were treated was impossible to ignore. Layla Monroe, "You are the oldest. You need to set an example" became the constant refrain whenever I needed something. Meanwhile, Brittany received without ever having to ask. When I needed braces at 13, I had to babysit for 6 months to contribute to the cost. When Brittany needed them 2 years later, they were scheduled without question. Family helps family. Dad would lecture whenever I expressed frustration, but somehow the helping only flowed in one direction. I was expected to share my clothes, give up my weekends to drive Brittany to mall trips with friends, and later edit her college papers while balancing my own coursework. The pattern continued into adulthood. While Brittany attended an expensive private university with all expenses covered, I cobbled together scholarships, worked 30 hours a week at a coffee shop, and still graduated with student loans. Not that anyone came to my graduation since it conflicted with Brittany's sophomore year spring formal. Last year, I finally caught a break. After 2 years of building my portfolio while working entry-level design jobs, I landed a position at Horizon Graphics, a growing design firm in downtown Minneapolis. The promotion came with better pay, more responsibility, and professional respect I had never experienced before. I invested nearly $2,000 in a professional-grade laptop that could handle the design software I needed for my projects. That laptop represented my independence, my career, my future. My birthday this year fell on a Tuesday. At 23, I was not expecting a huge celebration, but after securing 3 new clients the previous month, I thought maybe, just maybe, my family might acknowledge my success. Maybe this would be the year things changed. I was wrong. So, very wrong. Tuesday, April the 12th, dawned bright and clear. I woke up feeling genuinely optimistic. 23 felt significant somehow, like I was finally stepping fully into adulthood. I got ready for work with extra care, putting on my favorite navy blue dress and taking time with my makeup. My phone pinged with birthday messages from college friends and a sweet email from my team at work. Lauren, my closest friend since high school, had sent a funny GIF and promised drinks after work, but nothing from my family. Not unusual, I told myself. They probably would call later. The morning at work was surprisingly festive. My supervisor, Melissa, had brought in cupcakes, and the design team sang an embarrassingly loud rendition of Happy Birthday when I walked into our weekly meeting. Client calls went smoothly, and by lunch I was riding high on birthday goodwill. Then my phone buzzed at 12:32 p.m., a text from Dad. Finally, I thought opening it with a smile that quickly disappeared. "Sold your laptop. Brittany needs new phone. Hers broke yesterday. Got $700 for it. Be grateful we feed you when you visit." I stared at the screen, certain I was misunderstanding. The laptop that was in my bedroom at my parents' house where I still lived while saving for my own place. The laptop with all my client files, design projects, and portfolio work. The laptop I was planning to bring to work tomorrow for a major client presentation. My fingers shook as I typed, "Please tell me this is a joke. All my work is on that laptop. I need it for my job." His response came immediately. "Should have taken it with you." "Not my problem. Brittany needed phone for school. Your sister comes first." The office around me faded as panic set in. I stepped into an empty conference room to call him, but he did not pick up. I tried again, then sent another text. "Dad, I will help buy Brittany a phone, but I need my laptop back." "Where did you sell it?" "I will pay to get it back." 3 excruciating minutes passed before his reply. "Too late. Already sold. Also, you need to transfer $5,800 for Brittany tuition by Friday. She has registration and her account is on hold." The room seemed to tilt. I gripped the conference table for support. $5,800. My entire savings was just over $6,000 painstakingly accumulated for a security deposit and first month's rent on an apartment of my own. "No chance," I texted back. "That is my money for an apartment. Brittany gets full support from you and Mom. I have been paying my own way for years." The response was immediate and cold. "This is not a request. Family helps family. Transfer the money by Friday or find somewhere else to live. You are cut off." My phone rang. Morgan Tate. I answered, trying to keep my voice steady. "Layla Monroe, Dad said, 'You are giving me money for tuition. Thank you so much. I was so worried about registration. You are literally saving my life right now. Brittany, I cannot give you $5,800. I do not have it to give. But Dad said, I do not care what Dad said. That is my apartment money. And did you know he sold my laptop for your new phone?" A pause. "Oh yeah, my phone broke and I need it for school. But Dad said you never use that laptop anyway." "Never use it. It is my work computer. I have a major presentation tomorrow." "Well, maybe you should have taken it to work then," she said, her voice taking on the defensive tone I knew so well. "Anyway, I really need the tuition money. My registration is Friday and Daddy said you would handle it. I'm not handling it. I'm not giving you my savings. God, you are so selfish. You have a job. You can save more money. I am trying to get my education." She was shouting now. "Mom, Layla Monroe is being selfish again." I heard my mother in the background. Then she came on the line. "Layla Monroe, honey, please do not upset your sister. You know how important her education is to your father. Mom, Dad sold my work laptop without asking me. I have a presentation tomorrow." A pause. "Well, I am sure he thought he was helping Brittany. You know, she needs her phone for school. And what about what I need? What about my job? Do not be dramatic, Layla Monroe. You can probably use a computer at work. Family comes first. Your father expects you home for dinner at 6 o'clock. We can discuss the tuition then." She hung up before I could respond. I sat in the conference room trying to process what was happening. My entire family expected me to lose my savings and my essential work equipment without complaint, because family helps family only ever applied to me. Helping them, never the reverse. I somehow made it through the rest of the workday. Melissa noticed something was wrong, but I mumbled something about a headache. I canceled drinks with Lauren. I could not talk about this yet without breaking down. Dinner was exactly as awful as I expected. Dad lectured about family responsibility while carving the roast beef. Mom kept offering me more potatoes as if food could smooth over the situation. Brittany alternated between ignoring me completely and making dramatic statements about how her education was hanging in the balance. "I expect the money transferred by noon on Friday," Dad said as dessert was served. No one had mentioned my birthday. No card, no gift, not even a happy birthday. "I am not giving Brittany my savings," I said quietly. "And I want compensation for my laptop." The table went silent. Dad put down his fork slowly. "You live in my house, eat my food, use my electricity, and this is the gratitude I get after everything we have done for you. What exactly have you done for me lately, Dad? I pay for my car, my phone, my insurance. I buy my own clothes, pay my student loans, and contribute to groceries. Meanwhile, Brittany gets everything handed to her." "That is not fair," Brittany cried. "Just because you decided to be all independent does not mean I should suffer." "Enough, Dad," slammed his hand on the table. "Layla Monroe, you have until Friday. Transfer the money and start showing some gratitude or find somewhere else to live. I am done with your attitude." I looked at Mom, who was staring at her plate. "No help there. Never any help there." "Fine," I said, standing up. "I will be out by morning." That night alone in my room, I made the hardest decision of my life, but also somehow the easiest. For 23 years I had tried to earn approval that was never going to come. I had dimmed my light to avoid outshining Brittany. I had given and given without receiving even basic respect in return. It was time to go. Back in my bedroom, I took stock of my situation with strange clarity. The panic and hurt were still there, but beneath them was something new resolve. I pulled out my suitcase from under the bed and began a methodical inventory of what I owned versus what I needed. Clothing was easy, mostly professional attire for work, casual clothes, a few sentimental items like my college sweatshirt. I left behind anything purchased by my parents, which was not much in recent years. Toiletries, makeup, the books that had sustained me through lonely high school years, all came with me. I found my old external hard drive and said a prayer of thanks to my past self for backing up most of my work files last weekend. Not everything was there, but enough that I might avoid complete professional disaster. My financial situation required clear thinking. I had exactly $6,247 in savings. My next paycheck would come in 9 days. My monthly expenses included car payment, $315, car insurance, $120, student loan payment, $230, phone, $75, credit card minimum, $100. I would now need to add rent, utilities, food, and gas, and a new laptop somehow. The math was daunting, but not impossible if I found a roommate situation rather than my own apartment. I texted Lauren. "Major family blow-up. Need place to stay for a few days while I figure things out. Can I crash on your couch?" Her response was immediate. "My door is always open." "What happened? We'll explain when I see you. Probably coming tomorrow morning." With lodging temporarily secured, I continued packing. In my closet, I found the shoebox containing remnants of my childhood report cards with stratas that were never quite acknowledged. Ribbons from art competitions. A small trophy from the writing contest I won in 8th grade that Dad had called a nice hobby before turning the conversation to Brittany making the junior cheerleading squad. I took the small jewelry box my grandmother had given me before she passed the only person who had ever seemed to see me clearly. I left the gold bracelet Dad had given me for my 16th birthday, identical to the one he had given Brittany for her 13th. By 2 a.m., my car was quietly packed with everything I was taking. I sat at my desk and wrote a brief note. I have decided to move out as suggested. I will not be transferring money to Brittany as that is my emergency fund and apartment savings. I'm not cutting contact with the family, but I am establishing boundaries. I will reach out when I am settled, Layla Monroe. I placed it on my perfectly made bed, took one last look around the room that had never really felt like mine, and silently closed the door. The house was dark and quiet as I carried my last bag downstairs. No one stirred as I slipped out the front door for the last time. The click of the lock felt oddly final. The April night was chilly as I started my car and backed carefully out of the driveway. I did not look back at the house. Instead, I drove toward the rising sun, exhausted, but somehow lighter than I had felt in years. Lauren lived in a small apartment about 30 minutes from my parents' suburban neighborhood. As I drove through the gradually awakening city, reality began to set in. I had just left home with no real plan. I had enough savings to stay afloat for maybe 2 months if I was extremely careful. I had no laptop for work. I had only the vaguest notion of what came next. And yet beneath the fear was a surprising sense of liberation. For the first time in my life, no one would be comparing me to Brittany or telling me to be grateful for scraps of attention or expecting me to sacrifice my needs for someone else. The road ahead was terrifying, but it was mine. I arrived at Lauren House just as the sun was fully up. She met me at the door in pajamas, hair tealed from sleep concern written across her face. Layla Monroe's shaky inhale fills the silent kitchen, eyes stinging as she tightly grips the chipped mug. A flood of emotions swells as Lauren's words echo in her mind. Safety, resolve. Just as hope dares to flicker within her, her phone lights up. It's a message from her father. "Where are you? Come home." Now. Layla stares at the screen, pulse racing. Comfort or confrontation? What will she choose? Could she really step into independence? Or will she let her family draw her back into their controlling grasp? Layla's heart is still heavy with the weight of leaving home, the place that never truly felt like hers. Memories haunt her. Memories of being compared to Morgan Tate, her favored sister, who basked in the easy affection of their father, Franklin Webb, an authority figure wrapped in pride and a smothering grip. And then there's her mother, Denise Harper, always caught in a cycle of avoidance, desperate to keep the peace. In the turbulent world of family dynamics, Layla clings to her last shred of autonomy. As she begins unpacking her life at Lauren's tiny apartment, the warmth of friendship slowly lifts the fog. The enormity of her choice hits like a tidal wave. Tears flow unbidden as the reality that she's finally free from the toxicity of her past sinks in. Lauren's empathy shines bright. Your father sold your laptop without asking. On your birthday. Lauren's outrage sounds like a battle cry, reverberating through the cluttered kitchen and stirring Layla's long-buried emotions. And then, that moment of clarity. Every absurdity of her family's expectations comes crashing down. Light spills through the window, illuminating possibilities etched in the dust. "You can stay here as long as you need," Lauren reassures her. "We'll figure this out together." Finally, a deep breath fills Layla's lungs without the catch of sorrow. The path ahead may be filled with uncertainty, but she will not walk it alone. After more coffee and a needed shower, she faces her work crisis. Explaining to Melissa, her boss, that her father sold her laptop feels like unrolling a coiled spring of anxiety. But when Melissa suggests coming in early to figure things out, relief washes over her. By the time she arrives at the office, fueled by caffeine and adrenaline, the storm of her reality begins to reshape. With every keystroke, a new narrative unfolds, one where Layla decides her own fate. Today is just the beginning of carving a life built on her terms. Would she rise and reclaim what was taken? The real question is, how far is she willing to go for her autonomy? The client would never know the difference, but I was teetering on the edge of a professional disaster. My phone buzzed relentlessly, a storm of notifications I had ignored until I found a moment alone. 17 missed calls from Dad, 5 from Mom, 3 from Morgan Tate, and a flood of texts. "Dad, 7:05 a.m. Where are you? The car is gone." "Dad, 7:15 a.m. Answer your phone." "Dad, 7:32 a.m. This is childish behavior. Come home immediately." "Mom, 7:45 a.m. Your father is very upset. Please call us." "Morgan Tate, 8:01 a.m. OMG, you actually left. Dad is freaking out." "Dad, 8:30 a.m. You have responsibilities to this family. This is unacceptable." "Mom, 9:15 a.m. Please just call to let us know you are safe." The urgency and anger in their messages escalated like a rising tide. Dad had clearly underestimated me, expecting me to cave like I always had before. I sent a single text to Mom. "I am safe. I am at work. I need some time." Her response was immediate. "Come home after work. We can talk this out." I didn't reply. Instead, I dove into the Henderson presentation, pouring my energy into work. Surprisingly, it went well. Melissa even complimented my quick thinking in reconstructing the missing elements. After work, I returned to Lauren's apartment, only to find more messages waiting for me. Dad had roped in my aunts and uncles, all texting with concerns about my mental state and rash decisions. "Your family is really pulling out all the stops," Lauren said, reading over my shoulder. "Classic flying monkeys." "Flying monkeys?" I asked, confused. "Yeah, from the Wizard of Oz. The Wicked Witch sends them to do her bidding. Your dad is sending relatives to pressure you because his direct approach isn't working." That night, Morgan Tate called again. Against my better judgment, I answered. "How could you do this to me?" she demanded, her voice sharp. "Registration is tomorrow, and Dad says he can't pay my tuition because you took all your money." "I didn't take my money, Morgan Tate. It was always my money for my apartment." The weight of her words hung in the air, a reminder of the family dynamics I was trying to escape. But then, amidst the chaos, my phone buzzed again. An unfamiliar number flashed on the screen. "I saw what you did. Don't let them pull you back." Everything tilted. This wasn't just about me versus my family anymore. Someone out there was rooting for my escape. Would I rise and reclaim what was taken? The real question was, how far was I willing to go for my autonomy? Layla Monroe felt the sharp pang of loss as her fingers brushed the empty space on her desk, where her laptop once sat. Memories flooded back. The rhythmic tap of her keys at midnight, her room bathed in soft pools of streetlight, the warm embrace of her ritual mug of stale coffee. Within that familiar sound, certainty thrived. Her dreams, her ambitions, all hinged on that sleek device. But now, the air was thick with the acrid scent of hastily packed boxes. Dad's nonchalant assurance, "You'll manage," echoed in her mind, twisting her stomach. It wasn't just a missing laptop. It felt like trust had slipped through her fingers. And then, the chaos hit. But I needed more. Morgan Tate's voice pierced through the tension, raw with desperation. "What do you mean my tuition is suddenly my responsibility?" It wasn't just about money. It was about control. Dad had kept financial struggles under wraps, opting instead to pit his children against each other. The thought twisted deep in Layla's gut. Did he really expect her to sacrifice her dreams for Morgan Tate's college? "Did you even try to stop Dad from selling my laptop?" The accusation hung heavy in the air after Morgan Tate yelled and hung up. Layla's blood boiled. "It's just a laptop," Morgan Tate had snapped, her words dripping with entitlement. "You can buy another one." But could she? Not without her savings, which had always felt like a fragile lifeline. In that moment, guilt swirled in Layla's chest, but she shoved it down. "Did you know Dad's business is struggling?" she demanded of her mother later, the raw edge of anger lacing her voice. "You mean we have to fix everyone else's problems?" she shot back when Denise insisted they stick together as a family. But what about her aspirations? What about her boundaries? As the phone calls escalated, Layla felt the walls closing in. She could almost taste the rain-slicked pavement outside, a reminder of freedom. But then an unexpected message lit up her screen. "I saw what you did. Don't let them pull you back." A stranger's words, but they ignited something deep inside her. Could she really break free? The next day, fueled by determination, her friend Lauren offered support. Together they dissected familiar patterns and crafted a budget, scouring for the promise of independence. They found a room to rent in a shared house, a modest start, but it breathed life back into Layla's dreams. Just a small room, but it meant she would finally have space. Space to breathe, to save, to reclaim her life. Would she rise to the challenge? In the quiet moments, Layla felt the stirrings of hope. She would craft her own future, and, step by step, she would rise, refusing to let the weight of family expectations crush her spirit. The struggle wasn't over, but the first steps toward autonomy were finally within reach. The house was older but had charm, with a small bedroom ready for me. I stepped inside, the scent of fresh paint and warm wood welcoming me, instantly sparking anticipation. Jasmine, the nurse showing me around, introduced me to my potential roommates. They seemed chill, respectful, just as I needed. "You can move in this weekend," she said, excitement dancing in her voice. My heart raced. Was this real? The weight of starting over felt heavy but exhilarating too. Signing that 3-month agreement marked a shift. Reality hit hard when I realized how tight finances would be. My savings were dwindling after the deposit and first month's rent. Could I really pull this off? I needed extra cash, desperate to rebuild my safety net and replace that laptop. I dove into job hunting, applying for evening and weekend gigs that wouldn't clash with my design job. Finally, I landed weekend shifts at a mall bookstore, minimum wage and an employee discount. It wouldn't make me rich, but it was something. The first week flew by like a blur, a tangled mess of work, apartment scouting, and dodging my family's increasingly frantic messages. Morgan Tate's texts pinged with threats about taking out a student loan because of me, while Dad escalated to wild claims about my car being stolen, despite it being my name on the title. And then there was Mom. She stormed into my workplace on Friday, raising hell until Melissa, my boss, intervened. "Layla Monroe's in a client meeting and cannot be disturbed," she said, her tone firm, cutting through the chaos. When I finally returned to my desk, Melissa called me in. "Is everything all right at home, Layla Monroe? Your mother seemed really upset." I let out a heavy sigh, sharing just the basics. Her eyes softened as she listened. "Family dynamics can be complicated," she said gently. "Take Monday off if you need it, to settle in." That simple act of concern felt like a lifeline. Here I was, ready to shape my own destiny. Would I rise to the challenge? The struggle wasn't over, but in that moment, I felt the stirrings of hope. I could practically taste my freedom. Step by step, I would reclaim my life and craft my own future. Layla Monroe stood by the window, gazing out at the world outside. She was 12 again, pressed against the cold glass of her childhood bedroom. Sunlight streamed through, shimmering with dust motes floating aimlessly in the late afternoon light. Downstairs, her father Franklin Webb's voice sliced through the air, sharp, demanding, and unyielding. The scent of lavender cleaning spray hung in the air, comforting yet suffocating. In that moment, Layla longed for a locked door, a space that felt truly hers. Could a simple lock bring the freedom she craved? Her heart ached with the weight of her family's expectations and controlling grip. The distant shouts blended into a low hum, reminding her of all the times her voice was drowned out. Fast forward, and now, Layla's life wasn't much different. After moving into her new place, she felt both tiny and infinite, crushed by familiarity, yet yearning for independence. Her meager belongings surrounded her in boxes, symbolizing not just her possessions but her emotional baggage. Turning around, she spotted Jasmine, her roommate. "This plant is nearly impossible to kill," Jasmine said, handing her a small houseplant. "Just water it once a week." A small act, yet it rooted something profound in Layla. Weeks passed, filled with bittersweet challenges. The messages from her family grew more frantic, transforming anger into desperation. When her father stormed into her workplace demanding to see her, humiliation sliced through her. The looks from her colleagues felt like daggers, amplifying her fear of judgment. Would she ever escape this cycle? "Your father seems intense," Melissa, her boss, said with concern. Layla's heart sank. Could she handle the ever-present pressure without crumbling? The financial struggles loomed large, draining her like a slow leak. The additional shifts at the bookstore barely covered her bills, and when her car began to knock ominously, an avalanche of worry crashed over her. Fighting tears, she clenched her fists. Wasn't she supposed to be free? Amid the chaos, the growing resentment against her family made space for something new, something hopeful. Each day she learned to stretch her resources, making choices that echoed her desire for independence. Was she ready to reclaim her life? In that struggle, Layla discovered resilience. A glimmer of strength ignited within her. Would she rise from the ashes of family control to forge her own path? This was her story, a story about breaking free and creating a future on her own terms. Each small victory carved not just a new life, but a chance for the freedom she'd always craved. Could she dare to chase it? The answer was a resounding yes. The muffled thump of footsteps overhead always made Layla flinch. Her father's nightly rounds, checking locks as if her future hinged on each bolt. She could still feel the rush of midnight air, the light seeping under her door, sweat pooling in her palms as she hid her sketchbooks deep under mattress springs. The scent of laundry detergent mixed with dust hung in the room, amplifying a silence that both soothed and suffocated her. How long could her secrets remain hidden? Getting a mechanic's quote of $800 for car repairs felt like a punch to the gut. I couldn't afford that. I was drowning, looking at bus schedules and quantifying extended commute times when my phone rang, an unfamiliar number flashing on the screen. "Layla, this is Jackie Winters," the voice crackled through. Jackie, the confident woman from the design conference who had complimented my work. "I started a new creative agency and remembered your eye for detail. Interested in some freelance work?" Her words felt like a lifeline. "Absolutely. When do you need it?" "Monday, if possible. I'll email the details if you give me your address." I hesitated. "I lost my laptop recently. I'll have to use the computers at work after hours." "That's a problem for a designer," she replied. "Tell you what, I have an older MacBook that still runs design software. You can borrow it for this project. Consider it yours until you can get your own." 2 days later, I met Jackie at a coffee shop. She handed me not just the laptop, but an external hard drive packed with crucial files and programs. "Take good care of it, but it's yours to use." For the first time in weeks, a glimmer of hope ignited within me. The freelance project went better than I anticipated, leading to another and then another. Jackie transformed into both a client and a mentor, offering practical advice and inviting me to dinners where she shared her own struggles. I left an abusive marriage at 28 with only my portfolio. "Everyone said I was throwing away my security," she shared, her voice steady over pasta. 20 years later, I own my agency and my home, and I answer to no one but myself. Her story became my anchor amidst my mounting family issues. As I navigated the complex dynamics with my controlling father and conflict-averse mother, every conversation with Jackie fueled my resilience. Here I was, thinking about freedom and self-respect. Could I really carve out my own path? In the shadows of my uncertainties, each step forward felt more glorious than the last. Would I dare to break free once and for all? The weight of family expectations bore heavily on me, but the vision of independence glimmered ever brighter. This was my fight, a fight to reshape my story. Who knew the journey would spark a fire of hope within my heart? My sister had escalated to calling mutual friends and distant relatives, spreading her version of events that I had abandoned the family in a time of need, that I was selfish and ungrateful, that I had caused her academic probation by refusing to help with tuition. Some believed her. High school friends sent concerned messages. A cousin I had once been close to texted that I should stop being stubborn and help my sister. Even Lauren parents who had known me for years asked pointed questions about both sides of the story. The constant defense of my decisions was exhausting. Some days I questioned whether I had done the right thing. Maybe I should have just given Brittany the money. Maybe I was being selfish. Then my mother called with news that temporarily shook my resolve. "Your father had a minor heart episode," she said, her voice trembling. "The doctor called it a warning sign. He needs to reduce his stress." My stomach dropped. Is he okay for now? But he is worried about the business, and Brittany is struggling at school, and now this situation with you, it is all taking a toll. The implication was clear. My departure was contributing to my father's health problems. The guilt was overwhelming. "I will come visit him," I offered. "But Mom, I cannot move back. He needs his family together," she insisted. "He needs to know you support him." I agreed to Sunday dinner, dreading it, but feeling I had no choice. When I arrived at my parents' house, things seemed eerily normal. Mom had prepared my favorite meal. Dad was watching football, and Brittany was texting on a brand new iPhone. The passive-aggressive comments started before we even sat down. Look who decided family matters after all. Dad said his tone light but with an edge. "We saved your old room," Mom added. "Everything is just as you left it." Dinner conversation carefully avoided any mention of my departure or current living situation. Instead, Dad talked extensively about his business challenges and Brittany's sorority activities. When I mentioned a new project at work, the subject was quickly changed. After dinner, Dad asked me to join him in his study, the traditional location for serious discussions in our household. "I think you have made your point," he said, sitting behind his desk while I took the smaller chair across from him. "This little independence experiment has gone on long enough." "It is not an experiment, Dad. I have an apartment and roommates. I have responsibilities, and you do not think you have responsibilities here. Your sister is struggling without your help. Your mother is taking on extra stress because you are not here. My health is suffering." Each word was a carefully placed arrow aimed at my weakest points. For a moment, I wavered. The familiar guilt and desire for approval rose within me. "I can help in other ways," I offered. "I can come for dinner more often or help Brittany with her papers." He waved this away. "Half measures. This family needs you here, Layla Monroe. Your place is here. My place is where I choose it to be." I said the words coming out stronger than I expected. "I am an adult dad. I get to decide where I live and how I spend my money." His expression hardened. "As long as you maintain this attitude, you can consider yourself cut off from family resources. No inheritance, no help with your career, nothing." "I have been cut off from family resources since I was 18, I replied, standing up. "That is nothing new." I left soon after ignoring my mother tears and Brittany-pointed silence. Driving back to my shared house, I felt both drained and oddly strengthened. I had faced the full force of my father manipulation and remained standing. The next week brought a surprise. An email from the University Financial Aid Office responding to an inquiry I had never made. "Dear Miss Anderson, regarding your sister, Morgan Tate financial status, our records show her tuition has been paid in full for the current semester through your father's standard payment plan. She is not at risk of disenrollment, as previously stated." I stared at the screen in disbelief. The tuition crisis that had started this whole chain of events had been a fabrication. My father had never been in danger of being unable to pay. It had all been a test of my compliance or perhaps an opportunity to drain my savings to prevent my independence. The revelation should have made me angry, but instead I felt a strange sense of clarity. The patterns that had defined my family dynamic were now unmistakably clear. I could see the manipulation for what it was, and in seeing it, I found power to resist it. That night I called Jackie and accepted her offer of more consistent freelance work. "I want to build something of my own," I told her. "Something that cannot be taken away." "That is exactly the right attitude," she said approvingly. "Independence is built one brick at a time." I was laying those bricks slowly but surely. Each day I remained on my own was a victory. Each bill I paid myself a declaration of independence. Thanksgiving arrived with dreaded inevitability. I had successfully avoided major family gatherings for months. But the holiday was different. Refusing to attend the traditional celebration at my grandmother's house would create a family scandal that would ripple through every branch of the extended family. After much deliberation, I decided to go for the afternoon, only driving myself so I could leave when needed. I brought a homemade pie, determined to be polite but distant. The house was warm and noisy when I arrived, filled with aunts, uncles, and cousins. My grandmother, now 80 and increasingly frail, greeted me with genuine delight. "There is my girl," she said, holding my face in her soft hands. "I've missed you at Sunday dinners." I helped in the kitchen, catching up with Aunt Susan and Uncle Paul, carefully steering conversations away from my current living situation. For a while, it almost felt normal, like I was still part of this family tapestry without the complications. Then my father cornered me in the hallway. "Your mother is expecting you to announce your return home today," he said without preamble. It would be the perfect Thanksgiving gift for the family. I stared at him, caught off guard by the directness of the ambush. "I am not moving back, Dad." His face darkened. "You have made your point. This rebellion has gone on long enough. It is not a rebellion. It is my life. A life you are barely managing." He scoffed. "Your mother tells me you are working at a bookstore on weekends. Is that really the future you want? Struggling to make rent in some shared housing situation?" Before I could respond, my grandmother appeared in the hallway. "Franklin Webb, I need you to carve the turkey," she said, her tone light, but her eyes sharp. "Layla Monroe, would you help me with something in my room first?" Grateful for the rescue, I followed her to the small bedroom she kept at my aunt's house. She closed the door behind us and sat on the edge of her bed, patting the space beside her. "Now, tell me what is really going on," she said. "I have been hearing all sorts of stories, but I want to hear it from you." The simple act of being asked for my side opened a floodgate. I told her everything from the birthday text about my laptop, to the false tuition crisis to the current standoff. She listened without interruption, her lined face serious. When I finished, she took my hand in hers. "Your grandfather, God rest him, was just like your father. Everything had to be his way. It took me 30 years to stand up to him, and by then, so much life had passed me by." She reached into her bedside drawer and pulled out an envelope. "I was saving this for Christmas, but I think you need it now." Inside was a check for $2,000. "Grandma, I cannot take this," I protested. "You absolutely can and will," she said firmly. "This is not charity. This is me investing in your independence. Use it for a proper laptop, something no one can take from you." Tears filled my eyes. "Why are you the only one who understands?" "Because I lived my own version of this story," she said simply, "and I want a different ending for you." Dinner was tense but manageable with my grandmother's subtle support. When Brittany complained loudly about her student loan applications, Grandma smoothly changed the subject. When Dad began a pointed story about ungrateful children, she shut it down with a sharp look. The real confrontation came during dessert. My father stood glass raised and called for attention. "Before we give thanks, I think we need to clear the air about family matters." He began looking directly at me. "Layla Monroe has been going through a phase of rebellion causing her mother and I significant worry. Today, I am hoping she has an announcement to make that will bring peace back to our family." All eyes turned to me. I felt my face flush with embarrassment and anger. "I do not have any announcement," I said clearly, "except that I am grateful to be here today with all of you." "Layla Monroe," he said, his voice taking on the warning tone I knew so well. "This has gone on long enough. It is time to come home and resume your family responsibilities." "I have a home," I replied, standing as well, "and my only responsibility is to build a life that brings me peace and fulfillment." "After everything we have done for you," he began, but I cut him off. "What exactly have you done for me lately, Dad? Sold my laptop without permission, tried to take my savings, shown up at my workplace, and embarrassed me." A shocked silence fell over the table. No one ever interrupted my father. "I am not in rebellion," I continued, my voice steadier than I felt. "I am an adult who made a choice to live independently. That should be celebrated, not punished." The summer of my senior year still echoed in my mind. The scent of engine oil lingered in the air as I knelt beside my banged-up Corolla. I could hear Franklin's voice from the garage, each word dripping with expectations, each instruction heavy with the weight of his control. I wiped the sweat and motor grease from my brow, feeling that familiar pulse of defiance. Was it so wrong to want to steer my own life? In that moment, I realized I had to claim my escape. Fast forward to today, and the tension in the air was thick during our family dinner. I was trapped in a storm of judgment as Franklin stood up, glass in hand, ready to unleash his idea of family order. "Layla Monroe's been rebellious," he announced. Embarrassment washed over me. I could feel the heat rising in my cheeks as I responded. "I don't have any announcement, just gratitude for being here." "Enough, Layla Monroe," he warned, his tone sharp. "It's time to come home." My heart raced. Could he really think I would just step back into the life I fought so hard to escape? "I have a home, Dad. My only responsibility is to find my peace," I replied, standing firm. "But after everything we've sacrificed—" He trailed off, but I couldn't let him finish. "What have you done for me lately? You sold my laptop without asking, tried to take my savings, humiliated me at work." Silence enveloped the table. I had stepped into a forbidden territory. No one challenged Franklin. "I'm not in rebellion," I continued, my voice gaining strength. "I'm an adult making choices for my own life. That should be celebrated, not punished." How could he respond to that? Just as I feared Franklin would attack again, Aunt Susan chimed in. "Franklin, she's 23, not 16. If she wants to live independently, that's her choice." Support from unexpected corners. My uncle backed her up, describing the liberation he felt moving out at 19. Franklin's face reddened, shifting from anger to confusion. "She abandoned us when we needed her," he barked out, but I knew the truth. "Actually," I took a deep breath, "Morgan Tate's tuition was never at risk. It was paid through your regular plan. I have the email from financial aid." Gasps rippled through the room. Morgan Tate's eyes darted from confusion to embarrassment as she recognized the manipulation she'd played into. "Is that true?" Grandma's voice cut through the chaos, bringing Franklin's excuses to a standstill. "Temporarily delayed," Franklin muttered, deflated. "I was going to use Layla Monroe's funds as a stopgap." The veil was lifted, and for the first time, others were finally seeing the truth I experienced for years. His authoritative grip was slipping. I thanked those who stood by me, hugging Grandma and Aunt Susan as I excused myself. "I've watched this dynamic for years and never said a word," Aunt Susan admitted. "You deserve better." I drove home that night, lighter somehow. The painful confrontation was necessary. Something fundamental had shifted, not just in how my family viewed me, but how I viewed myself. The next week opened new doors. Jackie offered me a part-time position at her agency. Flexible hours meant I could finally phase out that grueling retail job. Independence was mine for the taking. "You have real talent," she said, "and more importantly, real determination. I want that energy in my company." With my grandmother gift and my first paycheck from Jackie Agency, I purchased a new laptop, even better than the one my father had sold. Setting it up in my small room, I felt a sense of ownership that went beyond the physical object. My sister texted a few days after Thanksgiving, her tone noticeably different. "I did not know Dad lied about the tuition," she wrote. "I thought it was real." "I believe you," I responded after careful consideration. "But you still participated in pressuring me to give up my savings." "I know. I am sorry." 2 words I could not remember hearing from her before. "I have been thinking about things about how differently we have been treated." It was a small acknowledgement, but significant. We arranged to meet for coffee the following weekend, neutral territory for a conversation long overdue. Meanwhile, my father switched tactics. Having failed at direct confrontation, he began focusing on his own problems, sending messages about business difficulties and health concerns, clearly hoping to activate my caretaking instincts. "Your father really needs your support right now," my mother texted daily. "Just a phone call would mean so much." I maintained firm boundaries while still showing basic compassion. I sent a get-well card to my father. I called my mother once a week for short, carefully managed conversations. I met my sister for coffee and listened to her halting attempts to understand our family dynamic from a new perspective. It was progress, however small, but the most significant progress was happening within me. I was building a life on my own terms. My shared housing situation, which my father had mocked, had become a supportive community. My roommates and I cooked together on Sundays, shared streaming service passwords, and looked out for each other in practical ways. My work at both jobs was thriving. The atmosphere in the restaurant felt charged, alive with unspoken tension. Layla Monroe sat across from her parents, Franklin Webb and Denise Harper, each forkful of food echoing the weight of past conflicts. "Your grandmother says you're doing well," Franklin commented, his rigid posture betraying his effort to maintain control. Layla nodded, a simple response. She could feel the vibrations of her phone against the table. Glancing down, Morgan Tate's name lit up the screen. The text read, "Grandma says congrats, but are you sure you want this?" In that moment, it hit her. This dinner wasn't just a family reunion. It was a carefully orchestrated agenda masked as concern. The clink of silverware grew louder, every sound amplifying who really held the reins in their family dynamic. A thick silence fell, and Layla's heart raced. "Thank you, but I've renewed my lease for another 6 months," she said, drawing a line in the sand. It felt both liberating and terrifying. "The house isn't the same without you," Denise added, her voice soft, almost pleading, as she reached for Layla's hand. The contrast between her mother's kindness and her father's stoicism weighed heavily in the air. They longed for her, but Layla knew her heart required space for genuine independence. With each tense pause, they navigated the labyrinth of their relationships. Layla maintained her boundaries, feeling a newfound strength swell within her. "I miss aspects of home, too," she allowed, her voice steady. "But I need to establish my own life." The conversation, while awkward, hinted at a fragile beginning. They were recognizing a need for a different dynamic, forging a path that utilized respect instead of control. As the dinner wound down, Franklin hesitated, finally offering an olive branch of praise about her job. "I looked up that agency you're working for. Jackie Winters has a good reputation." Walking back to her car, the cool evening air carried the scent of impending rain, grounding her in a moment of clarity. She no longer craved her father's approval or relied on his validation for her self-worth. For the first time, she felt a sense of ownership, not just over her accomplishments, but over her life. It wasn't just a dinner, it was a turning point, a battle fought with words instead of silence, resilience over resignation. As the leaves turned Layla Monroe and gold, I sat in my cozy room, surrounded by the nostalgia of a year gone by. My small space, once just a transient stop in my journey, had transformed. It was mine now. Every chipped paint and secondhand treasure screamed freedom. I breathed deeply, inhaling not just the scent of the crisp autumn air, but the victory of independence. A year ago, I was a different version of myself, anxious, unsure, clinging to borrowed dreams. But the dusty keyboard, a memory of that crutch, had been swapped for my own equipment, a symbol of triumph. My heart raced as I recalled my father's voice, booming with skepticism. "You'll never make it on your own." But here I was, thriving. With my job at Horizon Graphics and the real estate agency, I had built a life, not just financially, but emotionally. I was shedding my old fears, making choices for me, not for anyone else. The anxiety that shadowed my every step had begun to fade, making way for a stronger, bolder version of myself. Then, one sunny afternoon, my mom, Denise, arrived for one of her monthly visits. She walked in, carrying a little potted plant, another thoughtful, if unnecessary, gift. We sat in a cafe near my apartment, laughter rising between us as we navigated the cafe's bustling atmosphere. But it was during that casual moment she surprised me. "I've started seeing a therapist," she said, stirring her tea nervously. The words hung in the air, pregnant with potential. "Really? How's that going?" I probed, my heart racing with curiosity and concern, because this journey was ours now, dueling paths towards understanding and healing. "It's hard," she admitted, her eyes dropping to her now cold tea. "We're tackling codependency and enabling behaviors, things I never realized about myself." I held my breath, processing her honesty. "I owe you an apology, Layla," she continued, finally meeting my gaze. "I should have protected you more." The weight of her words crashed over me, bringing tears I didn't expect. "Thank you for saying that," I whispered, the warmth in my chest blooming brighter. It was a pivotal moment, a bridge built on vulnerability, an invitation to reshape our family dynamics. "And your father and I are working on things too," she added softly. Just when I thought I couldn't absorb anymore, another wave of hope rose within me. I smiled, feeling the dawn of a new era, a family learning to shed old skins, moving toward support over control. In that cafe filled with the aroma of roasted coffee and sweet pastries, I realized that independence wasn't just my journey anymore, it was ours. The living room's glow flickers as Layla Monroe steps inside, expecting silence. Instead, she catches a surprising sight. Her father, Franklin Webb, hunched over therapist notes, alone and vulnerable. The rich scent of fresh coffee mingles with an electric tension that fills the space. Nearby sits Morgan Tate, no longer the passive sibling, slowly encouraging Franklin, her presence a quiet source of support. In a moment of clarity, Layla glances out the window, imagining a future where old family roles no longer restrain them. What if they could finally break free? Just a few sessions in, Franklin had resisted at first, but after a nudge from his business partner, he finally agreed. It was shocking, yet welcome, a seismic shift in family dynamics. Meanwhile, Morgan was changing too. After an uncomfortable Thanksgiving wake-up call, she began to question family patterns, even landing a part-time job at the campus library. "Dad wanted to buy me a new winter coat," Morgan confessed during one of their now regular coffee outings, "but I told him I'd rather save up and buy it myself." Layla watched as laughter erupted between them, a new sisterly bond emerging from the ashes of their old rivalry. Yet with their father, the reconciliation was slower and more intricate. Their conversations felt formal, almost like walking on eggshells. Still, there was undeniable progress. He stopped trying to control every choice and instead engaged with her aspirations. When Layla mentioned the possibility of a promotion that would take her to the New York office of Horizon Graphics, Franklin surprised her. "It sounds like an excellent career move," he stated genuinely at dinner. While it wasn't outright approval, it was a shift towards respect, and that felt monumental. Meanwhile, Layla's grandmother had become her staunchest supporter. At 81, she radiated energy and wisdom. During one visit, she smiled brightly and said, "You know what makes me happiest? Seeing you make choices that bring you joy, not just to please others. That's true freedom." In that moment, the lights flickering in the living room morphed from a symbol of uncertainty to a beacon of hope. Could they forge a new family narrative? Layla felt the tides turning, ready to embrace a world where every voice mattered. Each step they took felt like a small victory, a moment of resilience blooming between them. Would they be able to break free and rebuild together? The journey toward independence and mutual respect was only just beginning. As my birthday rolled around again, I found myself diving into a whirlwind of reflection. Just a year ago, that painful text message had been an emotional avalanche, but now, it felt like a blessing in disguise, the spark that ignited my transformation. Lauren had organized a small gathering at her cozy apartment, a vibrant celebration of my 24th trip around the sun. Friends from both jobs, my roommates, and a few new faces I had met in a local art class filled the room. My mom swung by briefly, offering cupcakes and a gift card, still navigating her way through my new reality. Morgan had come solo, driving straight from campus. "Dad wanted to join," she said, her voice soft, but I told him, "You should decide when you're ready for that." It felt like the most selfless thing she had ever done for me. As everyone gathered around, singing and laughing, Jackie raised her glass for a toast. "To Layla, who taught me something important," she began. "Building your life your way isn't just about physical independence. It takes guts to be your true self, even when it feels scary." Her words hit me right in the heart. This past year had been a roller coaster, terrifying at times, lonely at others. Yet not for a second did I regret my decision to step away. The path to independence was anything but smooth, but it was mine. Later that night, as the party faded and silence settled over the room, my phone buzzed. It was a text from my father. "Happy birthday, Layla. Your grandmother mentioned you're doing great at the design agency. The door is always open here, but I respect the door you've built for yourself." Those words might not have been overflowing with emotion, but coming from him, they signified incredible progress. I responded with a simple, "Thank you." Looking back, that harsh birthday text had felt like a stab to the heart, but it was exactly what I needed to shatter the chains of my family's expectations. I realized that what had seemed cruel was actually the push towards freedom, leading me to forge a life on my own terms. The day my father sold my laptop without asking, I felt my world tilt. It wasn't just about the money. It felt like a betrayal, a final straw. The storm that followed forced my hand, pushed me to confront the family dynamics I'd been avoiding for far too long. As I navigated this crisis, something shifted within me. I realized that financial independence wasn't the only prize at stake. This was about boundaries. Each lesson I learned cut deeper than I expected. Saying no isn't wrong. It's vital. The patterns from my childhood, they don't have to dictate my adult life. Family isn't solely about blood. It's rooted in respect and genuine care. I was ready to build a family of choice, one grounded in mutual support and not guilt. Yet the road is still rocky. My relationship with my father? It's a delicate dance, never fully healed but always shifting. My mother still struggles to find her voice, caught in years of compromise. And my sister Morgan? She's navigating her own journey of self-reliance. What's important, though, is that I face these challenges with newfound strength. My worth no longer relies on their approval. My choices are finally mine. If you're wrestling with similar family expectations or yearning for your independence, I want my story to light a path for you. Setting boundaries isn't betrayal. Seeking your freedom is not selfish. Creating a life that aligns with your own needs? It's not just a dream. It's essential. So, what about you? What boundaries have you had to carve out in your life? Have you felt those suffocating family dynamics? Share your stories in the comments below. If you find strength in my journey, support our community by liking and subscribing. Let's uplift one another. Because standing up for yourself isn't just possible, it's worthwhile. Layla Monroe stood in the quiet living room, sunlight spilling across the dust motes. The air felt thick with tension. Franklin Webb's jaw was set tight, a fortress of authority. Denise Harper hovered nearby, her eyes darting nervously, while Morgan Tate shrank back, the favored sibling, always shielded. Layla's voice broke the silence, steady yet trembling. "I'm done fighting for scraps. My life, my choices." The words hung in the air, raw and vulnerable. Franklin's facade cracked, revealing a flicker of doubt. Denise let out a quiet sob, the weight of years of compromise crashing down. Morgan looked away, the privilege of her position suddenly heavy. Layla stepped outside, the cool air filling her lungs for the first time. The world felt vast and open, a canvas waiting for her brush. She was ready to paint her own life, free from the shadows of family expectations. What about you? Have you ever felt trapped by family dynamics? What would it take for you to step into your own light?